So if you're going to miss one session there, it will be a bit difficult for you to go through the next session there. I'll work with a start drawing. Okay. So in the application manager, so we have seen all these things, right? So next to this, if you can see here, so here we have a small box. So this is called as title. See, this is called as quick access toolbar there. So in the name itself, you can see that quick access. So very particular tool can be accessed quickly with the help of this option there. So if you can see here, so what all tools we have seen in application manager, the same tools can be seen here. There's something like open, new, and all those. So if you can see here, so here we have option of new, and then open, and then to save as, print, and then undo and redo there. So along with that, so here we have, so we don't have any there. So next to this, so here we have option called as workspace there. So if you go working with the workspace, so we have three types of workspaces there. So one is drafting and annotation, and then 3D basic and 3D modeling there. So with the help of drafting and annotation only, so we usually work with drafting up of our 2D objects there. So nothing but we'll be following XY plane, right? So with the help of these drafting and annotation only, so we usually work with the drafting 2D objects there. And if you go working with a 3D basic, so there we have some basic tools, what all we need for designing a 3D element there. And if you go working with 3D modeling, so there we have each and every tool, what all we need for designing a 3D model there. So when I work with AutoCAD 3D, so there we are going to discuss all these things, so 3D basic and 3D modeling. So for now, I'll go working with the drafting and annotation. Okay, so next to this, so here we have option. If you can see here, so here we have a white color rectangular boxes. So where in that we are able to see Autodesk AutoCAD 2016 drawing1.dwg. So this is called as title block for us. So for example, if you go working with saving up of your file there, so that name will be visible here. There. For example, say as Control S. I'll go working with browsing my folder. So where I want to save my file. So this PC OS AutoCAD the January 2023 batch. So I'll work with giving name as January 2020. So here we can see file of type there. So if you go working with the file of type, all these file types we have there. AutoCAD 2013 and then 2010, 2007, 4, 2000 and then R14 there. So along with this, so here we have AutoCAD drawing standards and then drawing template and then DXF files and all those there. I'll go working with AutoCAD 2013 drawing and I'll work with saving this. So now we can see the name change there. So Autodesk AutoCAD 2016 and then the path you are able to see here. Hope you are okay with this. Again, next to this, we have option called as type a keyword or phrase there. So for example, if you want to work with checking the description for the line there, I'll work with line. So here we'll get line command. Specify first point, specify second point, close and all those. So this also will discuss. So just give me some time. Again, next to this, so here we have option called as sign in and sign out there. So if you have account in A360 there, so we can go signing into our account there and then we can check the subscription portal we have there. Again, to the bottom of it, you are able to see a small rectangular box. Nothing but to the entire screen width, you are able to see a small rectangular box there. So that is called as a ribbon there. So where in the ribbon, so we have all these tabs there. So one is home tab and then insert, annotate, parametric, view, manage, output, add-ins, A360, Express tool, and then featured app, Vim 360, and then next we have performance there. So if you go working with the home tab, so there we have all these menus there. So one is draw menu, and then modify menu, annotation, and then layers, blocks, properties, groups, utilities, clipboard, and view there. So in the same way, so we have insert. In insert also we have all these menus, and then annotate, parametric, view, manage, output, add-ins, A360, Express tool, featured app, Vim 360, and then last we have performance. So just go for checking what all menus we have in each and every tab there, and also check the tools there. So if you go working with the drawing menu, draw menu. So here we have all these tools. So one is line and then polyline, circle, arc. Again, if you go for hovering your cursor, so here we can see rectangle. Again, if you click on it, so here we can see the polygon. Again, next to this, we have option of ellipse and then hatch we have there. So along with that, if you can see here, so here we have draw menu, right? So in each and every menu, so we have secondary tools. Okay. So what all tools we are able to see here in the menu, so were called as primary tools, and then the hidden tools were called as secondary tools there. Okay. So please have a look on all this, look of all this. So if you have any doubt in this, you can ask me there. Again, to the bottom left of the ribbon. So here we have option called as start and then January 2023 there. So along with that, so here we have option called as plus symbol there. So with the help of this plus symbol, so you can go for opening a new drawing there. Okay. Again, so this tab is called as files tab for us. So all the files, what all we have opened here, the text will be visible here. So for now, I'll work with the deleting all this. So again to the bottom of it, so here we have this option. So one is visual view control, and the next we have visual style control, and the next we have viewport controls there. So if you are working with the viewport control, so here we have. So here we have option of all this. So one is restore viewport and then viewport configuration list there. So if you are working with configuration, so here we can see all this. So one is single and then 2 vertical, 2 horizontal, and then 3 right, 3 left, and then next we have 3 above. So 3 below and then 3 vertical, horizontal, 4 equal right and left we have there. So all the time we'll be working with single there. But when you work with 3D, I suggest you to work with 2 or 3 viewports at a time. Again, so next we have visual style effect there. So here we can see the top view and all those. And if you go working with this option, so here we can see visual style controls. So if you go working with the visual style control, so here we have option of all this. So one is 2D wireframe and then conceptual, hidden, realistic, shaded with edge, and then shades of gray, sketchy wireframe, and the next we have X-ray there. Again, so next to this, if we can see here, so here we are able to see a small rectangular boxes. So that is called as command line there. So for example, if you want to work with a drawing a line, so that command will be given here. Or if you want to work with drawing a polyline, so that command will be given here there. So not only line and polyline, so still if you want to work with some other tools here, so that tool name will be given here as command there. Again, if you can see here, to the working area, we are able to see some grids there. Okay, some horizontal lines and then vertical lines, which seems to be a grid for us. So this is called as working area for us. In this working area, hope you are able to see the x-axis and y-axis. Suppose it's called as origin for us. So to this working area, to the top right of it, so here we have east, west, north, and south there. Along with that, we are able to see top right. So that is called as view cube for us. So if you go working with cube there, for one particular cube, so we have all these faces there. So one is top and then bottom, right side, left side, and then next we have front and back there. So along with that, so we'll be working with the directions east, west, north, and south there. So to the bottom of this view cube, we have navigation bar there. So where in the navigation bar, so we have option of all these. So one is full navigation view, and then pan option, and then zoom there. So if you go working with the zoom, so we have all these zoom commands. So one is zoom extends. So zoom extend, zoom window, zoom previous, and then zoom real time, zoom all, zoom dynamic, zoom scale, and then center object, zoom in and zoom out there. Again, so to the bottom of it, so here we can see orbit, and the next we have slow motion. In detail about this view cube and the navigation bar, we'll be discussing in 3D. So for now, I'll work with the next part of it there. So to the bottom left of the working area, so here we are able to see model and then layout one and layout two. So like how we went working with adding the files here there. So in the same way, we can work with adding n number of layouts, what all we need. So this is called as layout tab. Layout tab. To the right of it, so here we are able to see some values. So here we are able to see some values there, 812.5196 something, and then 73.5949, and then 0.0000. So this is called as coordinated. So where we work with giving up of X value, Y value, and Z value. So again, next to this, here we have option called as model. And then next to this, we can see some options where with blue color and then some options where with white color there. So really this is called as status bar for us. And you are able to see the difference, right? Blue color and white color. So blue color is nothing but particular tool is switched on, and then white color is nothing but particular tool is switched off. Okay. So there is a brief introduction to GUI there. In detail, we'll be discussing. So first, I'll go working with the primary tools there. So I'll discuss if you go working with the primary tool. So here we have option called as line, polyline, and then circle, arc, rectangle, polygon, ellipse, and match hatch. So in order to work with these drawing tools there, so first we need to work with the page setup there. So where we'll be working with unit. So if we go working with application manager, so here we have option called as drawing utility. So in the drawing utility only, we have option called as units. So I'll discuss earlier in the first session. So there in engineering drawing, so we have two types of units there. So one is imperial and the other one is metric. So but if you go working with AutoCAD here, so here we have 5 types of units. So just see what all we. So if you click on the unit here, we got a dialog box with a name called as drawing units there. So where in this we have option of all this. So one is length, angle, and then insertion scale, sample outputs, and then lighting there. So we'll not be working with insertion scale and then sample outputs and then lighting on all those. So for now, first I'll work with the length and angle there. So in the length, so we have two options. One is type and the other one is precision. So if you go working with type, if you go working with the type there, so here we have 5 types of units. So one is architectural. Again, next we have decimal, engineering, fractional, and scientific. The first I'll go working with architecture. Okay. So here in the precision, so we can see. So if you go working with architectural there, so here the values will be given in terms of feet and inches, but in terms of numerator and denominator. That's what we are able to see. So one is 0 feet, 0 inches, and then 0 feet, 0, 1 by 2, 0, 1 by 4, 1 by 8, 1 by 16, 1 by 32, 1 by 64, 1 by 128, and 1 by 256. So up to 8 precisions can be given here. Again, so if you go working with the decimal, so here we can work with giving values in terms of meters, millimeters, centimeter, and then some other there. Again, next to this, I'll work with engineering. If you go working with engineering, so here the values will be given in terms of feet and inches, but in terms of decimals. So that's what you are able to see. Again, so next we have fractional. So if you are working with the fractional, so here the values will be given in terms of numerator and denominator. So where you are able to see all this 0, 0, 1 by 2, 1 by 4, 1 by 8, 1 by 16, 32, 64, 128, and 256. Again, next to fractional, so here we have scientific. So if you are working with scientific, so here the values will be given in terms of E there. E is nothing but Euler number, which is used for calculating larger distances. So for now, I'll go working with engineering, and then precision value, I'll work with one precision. Okay. So once it is done, so next I'll go working with angle there. So if you go working with angle, so there also we have two options. One is type and the other one is precision. So if you go working with the type, so here we have all this. So one is decimal degrees and then degrees, minutes, seconds, and then gradients, radians, and then surveyor units. So I'll go working with decimal degrees. So here we can see precision in terms of decimals. Again, next I'll work with degrees, minutes, and seconds. So here we can see degree, minutes, and seconds. So 0D, 000, minute, and then next we have 00 second there. So if you go working with the minute there, the symbol for it is single exclamatory. And then if you go working with inches, so there The notation is double exclamatory. Again, so next to this, I'll work with the gradients. So here we have all this and then radians. If you go working with radiances, so the symbol for radians is R here. Again, next we have surveyor units. If you go working with surveyor units, so there we need to work with the directions. So here we can see northeast direction. Okay. So for now, I'll go working with decimal degrees. On precision, I'll work with the 1 precision. Okay. So, but for length, we went working with changing from decimal to engineering, and also precision. So we went working with 1 precision. Once it is done, so just click on OK. And it has asked you a question there. So for use with architectural or engineering linear unit, insert unit should be set to inches there. Are you sure you want to update the values you currently have selected? So yes, I want to update this. Okay. So this is how we work with the first part of the page setup, which is units. Again, next to this, we need to work with the dimensions. With that, we'll work. So I'll work with the dimensions. The shortcut for dimension is, so here we need to work with giving up of your command in the command line. The shortcut for dimension is D. Okay. So here in AutoCAD, spacebar is also used as enter. So we can either work with using spacebar or enter for entering. So next, if you go working with the D enter, so here we got a dialog box with a name called as Dimension Style Manager there. So where in this we have option of all this. So one is style we have on the preview of ISO 25. Again, next we have list and all those things. So first I'll work with style there. So if you go working with style, so here we have 3 options. So one is annotative, and the next we have ISO 25. Again, next we have option called as standard there. So by default, it will be with ISO 25. So that I'm going to change to annotative. So the reason why we are going to work with annotative, so that we'll be discussing in the further session. I'll work with annotative. So before it was with ISO 25, right? So that I'm going to update now to annotative. I'll work with a modify. Okay. So if we go working with the modify, so again we got a dialog box with a name called as modify dimension style, which is annotative. So where in this we have option of all this. So one is lines and then symbols and arrows, text, fit, primary unit, alternate unit, and the next we have tolerance. So out of all this, I'm not going to disturb any of this except primary unit. So in the primary unit, we have option of linear dimensions. So one is unit format or precision. So I'll go working with unit format. So if you go working with unit format, so here we have option of all this. So one is scientific and then decimal, engineering, architectural, fractional, and the next we have Windows desktop. I'll go working with engineering. Sorry. Okay. So the unit format, what we have selected in units, so that you need to select here. And then the same precision I'm going to follow, 1 precision. So once it is done, just click on OK. Okay. So after doing modification, so just click on set current and close there. Okay. So this is how we work with the page setup. So where we'll be working with setting up of our units and then dimension. So once it is done, so later on we need to work with the drawing tools. As discussed, if you go working with the drawing tool, so we have 2 types. One is primary and the next we have secondary there. So if you go working with the primary, so here we have option of all these. So one is line and then polyline, circle, arc, rectangle, polygon, ellipse, hatch there. And then if you go working with secondary tools, so here we can see one is spline fit and then spline CV and then construction line, and the next we have ray and then multiple point, divide, measure, and then region, wipeout, and the next we have 2D helix and then 3D polyline, and then next we have a donut and revision cloud. So first we'll go working with the primary tools. So I'll go working with the line. So before going to work with the line, so just check your coordinates. According to the cursor movement, it's going to change the value there. Okay. So I'll work with the placing my cursor somewhere near to origin. Okay. So first I'll go working with the line there. So just go work. So but before going to work with the line, so just see the description of it there. So line is going to create a straight line segment. So with line, you can create a series of contiguous line segment. So each segment is a line object, so that can be edited separately. I'll work with the line. So if you can see here, So here we have specify first point. Okay. So in order to work with specifying the point, so we need to work with coordinate system. So as discussed earlier, we have two types of coordinate system. So one is absolute coordinate system, and the next we have relative coordinate system. If you go working with absolute coordinate system, so here the values will be given in terms of x value, y value, and z value. Okay. So according to the movement or according to the displacement, so we need to work with changing up of our coordinate values. Again, so next to this we have option called as relative coordinates. So if you go working with relative coordinate system, so there we have two options. So one is relative rectangular coordinate system, and the next to this we have relative polar coordinate system. The first I'll go working with relative rectangular. So here also the values will be given in terms of feature edges, but sorry, x value and y value. So but with a prefix at the rate. Okay. So at the rate is nothing but displacement what we are going to do. And if you go working with relative polar coordinate system, so here the values will be given in terms of x value or y value, but with angle. Okay. So for angle, so we have a prefix which is less than. So first I'll go working with this. So it has asked me to specify the first point, right? I'll go working with specifying the origin. So which is 0, 0. So if you can see here, so line is getting start exactly from the origin. Okay. So from there, I'll work with moving along x-axis to a distance of 10 feet, 0. So here we have that. Okay. Again from here, I'll work with 10 feet, 10 feet. So from here it has moved there. I'll work with 0, 10 feet. Okay. Again, I'll work with 10 feet, 0. Sorry. Minus 10 feet, 0. Okay. Again, you need to work with bringing back there. So if you can see here in the description, it's going to ask you specify the next point all the time there. So how many points you need or how many lines or line segments you need there. So up to that line segment, it's going to ask you the next point. Okay. So next to this, if you can see here, we have option called as close and undo. So if you want to work with closing this particular object, so just go work with close there. Or if you want to work with regaining its original shape, so we can go working with undo option. So for now, I'll work with. Okay. So this is how we work with first type of coordinate system, which is relative coordinate system. Again, next to this, I'll work with So next to this, I'll work with relative coordinate system. So if you go working with relative coordinate system, as discussed, we have two types. So one is relative rectangular, and the next to this, we have option of relative polar. So first, I'll go working with relative rectangle. I'll go working with drawing a line. So from here, I'll start. Okay. I'll work with at the rate 10 feet, 0. So here we have this. Again, at the rate 0, 10 feet. Okay. Again, at the rate minus 10 feet, 0. Okay. Again, at the rate 0, minus 10 feet. Okay. So once it is done, so we can work with escape or we can go working with enter there. So, but I suggest you to work with enter all the time. Again, we'll work with the last type of coordinate system there, which is relative polar there. Again, I'll work with the line. So where it has asked me to specify the first, I'll go working with specifying somewhere here. So from here, I'll work with at the rate of 10 feet less than 0. Okay. Again, at the rate of 10 feet less than 90 degrees, at the rate of 10 feet minus 10 feet less than 180 degrees. So it went in forward direction. So at the rate of minus 10 feet less than 180 degrees. So minus is not working there. So at the rate of 10 feet less than 270 degrees. So 270 is also not working. At the rate of 10 feet less than 0. At the rate of 10 feet less than 90. At the rate of 10 feet less than 180 degrees. At the rate of 10 feet less than 270 degrees. Okay. So this is how we work with all the type of coordinate system. The one is absolute coordinate system and the relative coordinates. So now let's go for checking the dimensions. I'll go work with checking the dimensions. I'll work with DLI. So from here to here it is 10 feet. The same we have here. Again for the second rectangle. Again for the third one also, I'll work with checking the same dimension. So 10 feet. 10 feet. Okay, so this is how we work with the coordinate system. So hope you are okay with this. If you have any doubt in this, you can ask me. Again, next to this, we'll go working with polygon there. So with that, we'll work now. So before that, just give me 1 or 2 minutes. I'll be back. Okay, fine. I'm sorry for being late. Again, next to line, I'll go working with the polyline there. So it seems to be something like line only, but with some variation we have there. So just see the description of it. So with the help of polyline, it's going to create a 2D polyline. A 2D polyline is a connected sequence of segments created as a single planar object. So you can create a straight line segment, an arc segment, or a combination of two there with the help of the polyline. I'll go working with polyline now. Polyline. So it has asked you to specify the start point there. So for line also we have the same option, and then for polyline also we have the same option there. I'm going to specify the start point again. So next to this, it has asked you to specify the next point, or we have option of all these. So one is arc, and the next to this we have option of half width, length, undo, and width there. I'll work with specifying the next point. Next point. Next. Okay. So now I'll go working with arc. So we have an arc. Again, I'll work with the same line. Again, next to this, I'll work with some part of line. Again, I'll work with half width there. So if you go working with half width, it has asked you to specify the starting half width there. So that I'm going to work with 6 inches. Again, ending half width, I'll work with 0 there. So we are able to see a small arrow there. Again, I'll work with half width, so that I'm going to change to 0. Okay. So next to this, I'll go working with some part of line. Again, I'll work with the width. So if you go working with the width there, so it has asked you to specify the starting width there. The one is 0 feet 0 inches we have there. So that I'm going to change. So to 6 inches. Again to 6 inches. So here we have that. Again, I'll work with the length. Again, width I'm going to change to 0. So now we got normal line. Okay. So once it is done, I'll go work with clicking on enter. Okay. So now we'll see the difference for the line and polyline there. So if you go working with the line there, as discussed in the description. So you can see here. So each segment is a line object, so that can be written separately. So, but if you go working with the polyline there, it's a planar object for us. So now I'll go working with selection there. So before going to work with selection, I'll work with the drawing some random lines. So just click on enter. Okay. So now I'll go working with selecting object. If you go working with selection of object, it can be done in 3 ways. So one is placing your cursor exactly on the object. Again, next to this, we have option of dragging your cursor from right to left. Again, from left to right there. First, I'll go working with the placing my cursor exactly on the object. For example, so just see here, I'm going to place my cursor on the object. So where you are able to see the reference of which is line, and then color, if you can see here, which is bilayer, and then layer of it is 0, and then line type is bilayer there. I'll go working with clicking. Okay. So if you go working with selecting one particular object there, so for this particular line, so we are able to see three points there. So one is the starting point, ending point, and midpoint. The same you are able to see. Again, for the next line also we have same, and then following all the lines. Okay. So once it is done, so next to this, I'll go working with the second type of selection. So dragging your cursor from right to left. So now I'll work with the drag my cursor. I'll just go working with the placing my cursor somewhere here. I'll just click on it and I'll make my cursor free, and I'll go working with dragging my object. Okay. When you go working with the dragging up of your object, so just see here. So 3 objects, the last 3 objects are fully covered, and then whereas the 4th object is partially covered. Okay. So now I'll just click on this. Okay. So even though the 4th object is partially covered there, object has got selected. Okay. So but when you drag your cursor from left to right, okay. So what all objects were fully covered, so that has got selected, and then the 4th object, which is partially covered, is left unselected. Okay. So this is how we work with selection method. So placing your cursor exactly on the object. Again, next to this, we have option of dragging the cursor from right to left. Again, from left to right. So now I'll go working with selecting my polyline. If you go working with selecting the polyline, so all the objects which were drawn using the polyline, I'll go select the line and then arc and then half width and then width everything. Okay. Again, next to polygon, so we have option called a circle there. So we know what is single circle. Circle is nothing, it's a closed figure where for that particular circle. So we have center point and the next to this we have option of diameter and radius. Okay. So, but if you go working with circle in AutoCAD, so we have 6 type of circles there. If you go working with circle here in AutoCAD, so we have 6 types. So one is center and radius and then center and diameter, 2-point circle, 3-point circle, and then tangent, tangent, radius. And the next to this, we have option of triple tangent. So first I'll go working with the very first option, which is center and radius there. So if you go working with center and radius, so just see the description of it. It's going to create a circle using a center point and a radius. I'll work with center and radius. So if you go working with center and radius, it does ask you to specify the center point for a circle, or we have option of all these. So one is 3-point and 2-point, and the last we do this. So we have option of TTR there, so which is called as tangent, tangent, radius. So first I'll go working with specifying the center point for circle. So assuming, so these are my center point. Again, next to this, we need to work with the radius. So where I'll go working with the radius of 5. So if the radius is 5 feet, then so definitely the diameter will be 10 feet for us. Again, I'll go with the next type of circle, which is center and diameter. I'll work with center and diameter. So I'll work with specifying the center point for the circle. Again, next to this, we need to work with the diameter. I'll work with the diameter of specifying the diameter as 7 feet 6 inches. If you go working with giving up of your value there, so as I'm going to work with feet and inches, specifying feet symbol and then inch symbol is mandatory here. So for feet, it is single exclamatory, and then for inch, it is double exclamatory. So I'll work with 7 feet 6 inches. Okay. So this is how we work with the 2 types of circles there. So one is the radius, and next to this we have option of diameter. Again, next to this we have option of 2 points there. So if you go working with the 2 point, it's going to create a circle using 2 and 2 points of the diameter. I'll work with specifying the first point and second point. Again, so next to this, I'll go working with the 3 point there. So if you go working with 3 point, it's going to create a circle using 3 points on the circumference there. I'll work with 3 point. I'll work with specifying the first point, second point, and third point. Okay. So this is how we work with the 4 types of circles. So one is center and radius, and the center and diameter, 2-point circle and 3-point circle. Again, so next to this, we have option called as tangent, tangent, radius. Okay. So we know what is meant by tangent. So tangent is nothing but it's a line or a point which is passing through circumference of the circle. So in order to work with the tangent, tangent, radius, I'll go work with drawing some random objects. I'll work with the top view. So now I'll go working with tangent, tangent, and radius. So if you go working with the tangent, tangent, and radius, it's going to create a circle with a specified a radius tangent to two objects. I'll work with this. So does ask me to specify the point on object for first tangent of circle. So this is my first tangent point, and this is my second tangent point. Again, next to this, it has asked me to specify the radius for the circle. So that I'm going to work with 5. Or I'll work with a radius of 2 feet. Okay. So we can't go working with specifying 20 feet or 40 feet or 60 feet something there. So whichever is possible, so only so that we'll get here. Okay. Again, next to this, so we work with the next option there, so which is triple tangent. So if we go working with the triple tangent, so here we need to work with giving 3 different tangent points. I'll work with specifying the first tangent point, second tangent point, and third tangent point. Okay. So this is how we work with circle. So one is center point and radius there, and the center point and diameter, 2-point circle, 3-point circle, and then tangent, radius, and triple tangent here. Okay. Again, next to this, we have option called as arc. So a part of the circle is called as arc here. So go working with arc there. In AutoCAD, we have 11 types of arcs here. So that you are able to see here. So one is 3-point arc, and then start center end, start center angle, start center length, start and angle, start and direction, start and radius, center start end, center start angle, center start length, and the last you have option called as continue there. So first I'll go work with start, center, and end there. I'll work with erasing all this. So now I'll go working with this option. So which is starting point, center point, and end there. So I'll work with this option. So where I'll go working with specifying the start point, center point. Again, next to this, we need to work with specifying the end point. Okay. So up to here we can keep. So 369 degrees can be given here there. If you go working with the 0 there, it will not be an arc. It will be a circle. Okay. So for that reason only, I'll go working with this end point of arc somewhere here. Again, so next to this, we have option called as start, center, and angle there. So this is my starting point, and this is my center point. Again, next to this, we need to work with angle there. So for example, I'll work with 100. Okay, so up to 120 degrees. So we got an arc there. Again, so next to this, we have option called as start, center, and length there. I'll work with start, center, length. So starting point, center point. Again, next to this, we need to work with the length there. So length I'll work with 4. Okay. So this is how we work with first three type of arc there. So along with that, so here we have option called as start, end, and angle, start, end, and direction, start, end, and radius. So first I'll work with start, end, and angle. So this is my starting point. So this is my ending point. Again, next to this, we need to work with angle there. So for example, here 180 degrees. Again, I'll work with start, end, and direction. So I work with the design door, that is going to give start, end, and direction. So starting point, ending point. Again, next to this, we need to work the direction. So here we have 90 degrees or with 180 degrees. I'll do right click. again. So next to do, so we have option called as start, end, and radius. So it's similar to start and direction only. So but here we need, instead of working with the direction, so we need to work the radius. So same point, ending point, and radius as 5 feet. Okay. So here also we have the same direction, and then here also we have the same. So this is how we work with start and direction and start and radius. So start and the loads of when you work with designing doors for one particular floor plan. Okay. Again, so this we have often called as center, start, end there. So quite opposite with first three types. So there first we went for specifying the starting point, center point, and end there. So then we need to work with giving the first point as center point, and later on we need to work with specifying that point and end point. So this is my center point, starting point, and then end point I need to give this. So next will be work with angle. Center point, starting point, then angle. So last option called as okay, I'm sorry for the disturbance. So here I'll go work with specifying the length. Okay. So this is how we work with arc there. So but if you go working with arc here there, I'll work with 30. So I'll work with the first type, which is okay, we'll work with the first type, start, center, and end. So starting point, center point. Again, next we need to work with end there. So even if you go working with the clockwise there, arc is getting drawn to anti-clockwise. In order to draw a particular arc in clockwise direction, so we need to hold on control there. So that we have here in the command line. So just see the description, hold the control to switch the direction. I'll work with holding my control. So now you can work with switching it to clockwise. Okay. So this is how we work with arc. Again, next to arc. So here we have option called as rectangle. Okay. So first I'll go working with rectangle. So if you go work with rectangle there, so just see the description of it. So just see the description of it. So rectangle, it has asked you to specify the first corner point, or we have option of all this. So one is chamfer and then elevation, fillet, thickness, and the next to this we have option called as width there. So if you are working with the rectangle there, so before giving any start point, so here we have 5 types of rectangles. So if you work with the placing up of your point, now we can see here. So we are able to draw a rectangle. So along with that, if you can see here in the description, so we have option of specifying other corner point, or we have option of all these. So one is area, and the next to this we have option of dimension and rotation. So first I'll go work with area now. I'll work with area. So it will ask you to enter area of rectangle square inches there. So for example, I'll work with 1200 square inches. Okay. Again, next to this, it has asked you to calculate rectangle dimensions based on length or width there. I'll go working with length now. Okay. Again, next to this, it has asked you to enter rectangle length. So that I'm going to work with 5. Okay. If you work with entering the length there, it's going to calculate the width automatically. So I'll go working with checking my dimension again. So here we have 5 feet, and then it has calculated the width, right, which is 1 feet 8 inches there. Again, I'll work with the same rectangle. Instead of working with area, I'll go working with the dimension. If you go working with the dimensions, it asks you to specify length of the rectangle. So that I'm going to work with the 10 feet. The width I'll work with 5 feet. I can next to this have option of shifting the alignment there. So here you can see this is the first corner point we gave there, and the second corner point. So the top right of it, top left of it, and then bottom left, and then bottom right. I'll work with placing it to the top right. Again, so just go for checking the dimension. So from here to here it is 10 feet. Again, from here to here it is 5 feet there. Okay. So this is how we work with drawing a rectangle with respect to dimensions. Again, I'll work with the same rectangle. I'll work with specifying the point. So instead of working with the dimensions, I'll go work with rotation. So it has asked me to specify the rotation angle. So that I'll work with 20 degrees there. Again, we can either work with area or we can work with the dimensions there. I'll work with dimensions, same 10 feet and 5. So here also we have the same option. Find second corner to the top right or to the top left or to the bottom left or bottom right. I'll work with the bottom. Okay, so this is the way of again to work second time. That's how we work with the points, charts, everything. So that we'll see the next one. Or now if you have in today's session, you can add it. So nobody is there in the session. So thank you everyone. We'll see you in the next session.